Good morning, guys. Welcome to the Cam and Joe Show. If this is your first time listening, we appreciate you guys following along. If you would like a little bit more of our content, follow us on Facebook, find us on YouTube and Spotify. Joe, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, man.
First off, how cool are these mugs?
They're so amazing.
Look at that.
I'm holding up the logo, but then I feel like we have to
no.
like Viking this.
Boom.
Crap.
Clink. How's your week, bud?
It was awesome, man. Just doing a lot of prep for the play.
That's right. When's the first night?
Next week, Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday of this coming week. Mm-hmm. Oh, you excited?
Bro.
Do you have any part on stage, or is all of yours?
All my stuff is video,
Smart.
and I'm the nerd behind the spot yelling at people. I also did narration that's recorded. So I hear myself consistently.
I'm stoked to see it.
But I'm not there.
And you're only as narcissistic as we know you to be.
Well, I'm wearing old man makeup, so you can't really tell too much, actually. You're like, oh, I know him.
Introduce our guest. Let's get this thing rolling.
Well, I have the wonderful privilege to introduce Cynthia. She is you go by Cindy?
Yeah, either one.
Cynthia. She works with charter schools, specifically all of the charter schools for school choice and making sure that your kids can get the best education possible. And she wanted to talk today about school choice and all the things that we can do to be a part of it. I know there's more formal terms that I totally messed up on, but my brain went, burnt. And instead of me going...
Your brain went, Friday.
Yeah. I was going to say, hey, Alexa. So go ahead. Welcome for coming. Come on and let us know more.
Awesome. So I'm Cynthia Rachel. I'm the Director of Communications and Development for Innovative Education
That is
Management.
so much better.
There you go. That does sound better.
And our goal at IEM is parent-driven education.
Yeah.
So whatever choice a parent and family makes for the education of their children, we want them to be actively involved.
That's awesome.
It could be anything from independently homeschooling, you know, totally on your own, all the way to the school that you're assigned to by your residential address. You know, whatever educational facility or entity you're working with, how do you get involved as a parent?
That's awesome.
So that you aren't just saying, well, I don't know what they do at school all day, or, oh, well, the school's supposed to do that. You know, you should be able to answer questions about your child's education.
Well, and then you're also eliminating that. You're giving them, hey, here's the information, here's the opportunities. And if you're missing these, it's on you.
Yes.
It's no longer I don't know, it's a shrouded mystery. It's like, no, you could figure it out.
Yeah, and I want families to know that you aren't limited to just the school that you're assigned to by your residential address, that you have choices.
Yeah.
And in our community, we have amazing opportunities for every learning style, that there is. So you don't have to say, oh, well, my kid's school doesn't offer that.
Sure.
Okay, they might not. And at this point in your life, it might not work for you to go to another school.
Sure.
But if at some point that changes and you have the flexibility to, drive them to a school in Marysville or drive them to a school on the other side of town, there is a process to make that possible. So just know you have that option. And when you're ready to take it or you want to know more information, I'd love to help you so that you feel equipped to have that conversation.
To what extent is there like how much of that process is completely barred? Like, can you essentially live, or to what degree does this work? Can you live kind of anywhere in town and vet to try to get your kid into any school, or is there a certain like mileage thing? I know that obviously your residence is going to be, your residence is predetermining the school that your kids go to, right? There's that. But for those of us who are learning through this podcast more, what is kind of their next step? Like, I'm thinking of my son. We're in South Yuba City off of Garden and Eureka, and there are schools a little further away that may prefer him to get into, right? Without knocking any school per se. Yep. I wish we would have done this podcast like 6 months ago. So like I could have done all my homework. Now school's starting in June.
But don't worry,
sure.
Just because you started a school doesn't mean you have to stay there.
Yeah,
that's
true.
one thing to know is any school, you're not in a contractual agreement that you have to stay for any amount of time.
Yeah.
So if you had an absolutely horrific experience anywhere, you could literally walk in and say, I'm disenrolling my child today.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a plan B set up.
It doesn't have to be at the end of the academic year or anything like that.
No, you are not stuck. Now, do you want to school hop all year
Sure.
long.
No,
You want
Sure.
continuity.
Yeah.
But
For the kid as well.
you don't have to suffer through it.
So
just
buyer's
because,
remorse.
Yeah, you're there. Yeah. And so what you would do is you'd want to explore the options in the community, and you are not limited based on, like, you could live in Yuba City and want to enroll in a school in Marysville.
Sure.
That's fine. If you're going to go through a standard interdistrict transfer, you're going to want to communicate with the school district. So there's interdistrict transfers, which is going in between school districts, and there's intra-district, which is
Exactly.
for example, I live by Lindcrest and I want my child to go to Terra Buena.
Sure.
You're going to go through a process. Now, oftentimes the schools that you want might be a school that everybody wants. So you do have to, you have to go through their process and see if there's going to be space available. Within a school district, the first choice or the first right to attend the school is the students who live within the geographic boundaries.
Got it.
But then any other spots are available.
Got it.
And so each district will have their process. I would say if you want to go to another school, whether it's within the same school year or the year after, you just want to communicate early. Learn as much as you can about the process so you have the best opportunity to get in. Some schools, especially as like a single school district, like Franklin in our community or Sutter, they may have a lottery process because they have a lot of out-of-district students that are interested in attending.
Makes sense.
So you just want to find out early, and then just know that that lottery wait list is only for that school year. So at the end of the school year, whoever didn't get in, those applications just go away. And then you apply again for that next school year.
That makes sense.
So it's not like, oh, well, I was number 32 on the list for kindergarten. My kid's never getting in. They might not get in for kindergarten, but then you apply again for first grade, and they might get drawn as number 2. So you do have that. You want to know. And so I think the big thing is for parents to communicate with schools. If you're having problems at a school, the first thing should be to have a conversation with the leadership at the school.
Absolutely.
Give them that opportunity to fix it, unless it's something that's absolutely horrific, catastrophic. But have that conversation, see how you can get involved or how you can learn more. I like to use the phrase like, get curious. Don't go in with a bunch of heavy threats, but just say, can we have a conversation? I'm hearing things that make me a little worried.
Absolutely.
But I want to hear from you. So can you help me to understand this situation? Can you help me to understand how this program works?
100%.
And then go from there. And if you don't like the answers you're getting, you do have the right to go to the school board and have a conversation. As a parent or any constituent in the community, you can have conversations with school board members at any time. You can email them, set up an appointment. They have the right and the responsibility to communicate with their constituents.
That's awesome.
They are elected officials. So you have access to them. There's laws around them communicating between each other. They have to do that in an open public meeting. It's
with
important.
Quorum and all that.
Yes, and it's important to know that a meeting in the public is not a meeting with the public. So a lot of people get frustrated when they go to a board meeting and they're upset and they speak their public comment and the board says, thank you so much. And that's where it ends in that setting because it wasn't on the agenda.
Correct.
But it's just important to know so that you set your expectations and you don't, every time I've gone, people are like, this is such a waste.
Responded.
Nobody listened to us. And so it's helpful if they just know they followed the process. You can have stuff be on an agenda for a discussion later, but they're going to discuss it between themselves.
Correct.
It's not necessarily going to be a public hearing where it's going back and forth. So, you do have layers of support. You can talk to the county office if something's really bad, and they may be able to have a different kind of conversation with the superintendent to learn more behind closed doors kind of stuff. But there's options. But ultimately, if you feel like you're going through all of this, or it just doesn't feel like it's the right school for your child, it could just be that like gut feeling. There's other places you can go. There's great educational choices, and you don't have to go it alone.
That's amazing.
That is.
I think that well, you see it now. I mean, parents have been getting more involved with kids than ever before. Something that I think is interesting because I still have this feeling when I see my old teachers, there's this like, wow, this is amazing. And then it's hard there's like this thing in me that's hard to be like, you're still my teacher, right? You're not a peer. You're my teacher, right?
Totally.
And it's hard 100%. To turn that off. And so I can see a total miscommunication when you get older, being like, okay, these are teachers, but. And
dude, I will never call your mom by her first name.
No.
Period. No. And when I see Mrs. Waters or Mrs. Prather, I'm never going to call them. I'm never going to call her Sandy.
No,
because it's Mrs. Weird. Waters.
Your mom was my math teacher.
Yeah, there you go.
It's always Mrs. Subtle.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Right?
It will always be. And so I think there's this thing that instinctively, as you get older, no one tells you, hey, by the way,
yeah,
it is now they're now more peer, but still not.
No, they're not.
And so you're like, they are, but.
Yep.
In your mind, it's not going to be that way because you called them that for all that time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think is that of being afraid to speak up because you're used to being in class and you're just used to that, and then you get older, and then when you think of school and when you think of other things, there's this part of you that shrinks down, going, "Well, I'm still a student."
I think that there is, we have made it to where education is a profession that is admirable, and we feel that they have been trained and they must know the right way. I mean, they got the secret handbook, that none of us got as parents.
They know the secret handshake. They've got it figured out.
They know what's best. And we want to assume that.
Correct. But it's
that they know what's best. And there's also this feeling, I think, for a lot of parents that think, well, they went to college for that. I didn't. I went to college for something else. This is what they know. And so who am I to say
I get that.
Who am I to combat
this
what they're
should
saying?
be the way it is?
I get it.
It's the same as like if you have to challenge your doctor.
100%.
Yeah.
Everyone's
100%.
like, please
Doc,
don't.
I don't know what I'm talking about here, but hear me out.
Yeah, but they're, when they say, "Oh, don't confuse your Google search with my college degree," it's like, yes, but don't confuse your college degree with my maternal instinct.
Yeah,
that something's
with my
not
motherly
right.
intuition.
100%.
Yeah, there's something here, and and that's the same in education. Like your child better than anyone.
Exactly.
And you need to be in a position to make decisions on how they're going to be educated because, and this is one thing that our founder believes in, you as a parent have the lifetime of the consequences of the decisions you make for your child's education.
Yeah.
Yes, we as a society, benefit or are damaged by things as well. But like, if you get old and your children have not been educated well and cannot help to care for you, you are the one who feels that. Or if you feel that you have to care for your children all the way through adulthood because they're not equipped to do it themselves, you are the one who's going to ultimately
100%.
live with that.
100%.
So how do we make sure that you, as the person who's going to deal with this forever, is in a position to be an active part of choosing how they get educated?
And I think the biggest, like for instance, we're talking about education. My mom was a teacher.
Yep.
I married a teacher. Right. So there's education on
they say that you marry someone that's similar to your mother. So
there's that. there's that.
Hannah, don't kill me.
I love the topic of education. Truly, I do.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about a child's upbringing, there's so much time of their upbringing is spent at school, right? So we're talking about school choice. How foundational to that person's upbringing is where they go to school, right? The conversations they have, the friends that they make, the overall socioeconomic climate of the area in which that school where that school is, that all of those aspects play in, right? If you take a kid 5 years old, 5 to 18, kindergarten to senior in high school, from 8 a.m. to 2:30 to 2:45, 5 days of every week.
Yep.
That's a ton of time.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is hugely enlightening. I love the topic. Honestly, I love the topic of education. When somebody, let's say somebody is down the line, their kid is gone 3rd, 4th, 5th, and let's just say they're at a school that would naturally take them through 8th grade, but they maybe want to take them to a school that has elementary separated from junior high. What does that look like? Where in the process do they begin to? Is there ever a time that somebody reaches out to you directly and you are kind of the liaison and kind of champion them along, or what does that resource look like?
So a lot of times, in my official capacity, I always am serving the families within innovative education management and helping them. But I don't really see a difference between professional and personal. It's all the same.
No,
so a lot of times
that line should blend when you're doing it right.
Yeah. And I'm online with families, or like the Yuba City Moms group on Facebook. There's always questions about school.
Yeah.
And I just don't want anyone to ever feel like they're just stuck. So I'm happy to have those conversations and say, here's the next step, or here's a good person to call, and just make those connections. Awesome. I feel like just the networking and connecting them with the next right person for that handoff is 100%. Really helpful, because then you're not walking in like cold.
For sure.
But yeah, you can absolutely, if you were at a K-8 and you decided, oh, I think I really want them to go to a middle school, which I'll just say is not common. Typically it's the other way around. We want to keep them young as long as possible. So we're like, oh, we'd really love for them to go to a small K-8. So you can make that shift and, talk to the school district if you want, wherever you want to go, you start there. Talk to them. You can ask for a tour. You can ask for a meeting. If you feel like you need more information, you can absolutely do that. I did want to say, you bring up the idea of school takes up a lot of every day. 5 days a week, you're looking at hundreds of hours a year, thousands probably. There are options that don't take you away from your family for all those hours. And I think it's important to just know what's available in the community. And you brought up the part about parents are getting a lot more involved. And we kind of went through this thing where parental involvement in schools dipped down. And then when COVID happened there was this frantic, how the heck do we run a school?
Wait, and I think COVID brought so much buy-in. COVID brought in hold on, you're going to teach them what? And now all these parents are like, what? My mind was blown.
The parents did
last year and the year before that the school we went to growing up, New Life Christian School, private school in Marysville, was like backlogged and you had to get onto a lottery. I'm like, there was like 12 people in our graduating class. I'm like, excuse me? They're like, oh yeah, it's popping. I was like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
That is so wild. So you go through the pandemic, and I mean, where we're at in society, they're starting to teach some topics that not everybody is going to agree with. And then instantly they're like, whoa, hold on. So COVID brought a lot more light bulb moments, a lot more buy-in, and a lot more involvement, which is great. Right? Why let go of that?
We saw, and the way that we've looked at it is a lot of our families within our schools identify themselves as homeschoolers. In California, that means something different because we are public charter schools. But our students are educated at home and in the community through some really awesome vendors that we partner with. So our students, a lot of times if you ask them, who's your teacher? They're like, my mom, even though they might have, they have a credentialed teacher that 100%. They work with. So, but within that, families all of a sudden have remote working opportunities that they never had before.
Or also due to COVID.
Or they have a health issue that now limits them from being able, if they have a chronic illness and any germs coming in the house are going to put a loved one at risk, they now need an opportunity that doesn't require them to be in a school with 600 kids. So we're seeing a new influx of families looking for this. I also, with my back the badge love, our first responders have really weird hours. They just do
100%.
So we do see a lot of families that have first responders in their household that are saying, wait, if my child goes to a school site every day, they only get to see mom or dad an hour a week, or because they're sleeping during the day and they're gone at night or whatever.
It's rough,
So I had one of our friends that worked for Highway Patrol. Their daughter came to our school because dad was always off on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Now Wednesdays and Thursdays are family learning days where dad is actively involved, and when dad wakes up for his nocturnal shift, he can be a part of the family, and they're not trying to cram in homework and you're not having to cram everything in your life between like 5 and 8 p.m. You now have the whole day to do things, whatever it might be. Or, if you have a student that as teenagers, they get older and they want to sleep in and morning's not when they're most effective. Now you're not trying to shove them into a class at 8:30 in the morning.
Yep.
You're saying, okay, in the morning, you kind of flip your day. Okay, in the morning, we take things slow.
Yeah.
We do some self-selected activities.
Yeah.
And then we eat some lunch. And then we dive into our schoolwork when you're the freshest.
Yeah.
And in a house, it might mean that you run a lot of different school days.
Sure.
You have one kid that loves workbooks.
And
they want to do as many pages in a day as they can. And they start all on their own. They're super self-motivated.
Yeah.
Then you have the other kid that you're kind of dragging to the kitchen table.
Yeah, sure.
But you have the ability to do that. And you're not trying to get 30 fourth graders to the same place at the same time on
Herding
the same
cats.
day.
I think that it's one size fits most, not
100%.
all, right? And we're finally realizing that. And I think we're finding the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? You can teach somebody something and they can totally learn that, and that's great. I mean, the teachers go and they get the knowledge, but the experienced teachers have the wisdom, right? They've been doing it for 25 years. They know that, hey, that book was written, that's not as effective as they think, because the guy who wrote that wasn't a teacher.
Yeah.
Guess what? We're going to connect those gaps. And I think that what's happening is teachers or parents are now realizing teachers are learning, and they're going, well, we need to learn as well. And I think it's not escalating, because it's not the right word, but it's elevating everyone, because if the parents' time is being honored with the kids, then they're going to honor the time with the kids will honor the time with the teacher.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that reciprocal relationship just makes a huge difference on impact.
Yeah.
And instead of us going, it has to be this way, it has to go this way, I look at COVID as a blessing in that regard, because it made us go, well, you have to go to the office to do this, even though you're sitting behind a cubicle and you're on your phone, or you're on your,
Right.
and you could do it at home, but you have to come in. Instead, now it's like, no, you don't have to. As long as the work is getting done, you can be at home with your kid.
Yeah.
And now guess what? Hey, dad's got work he's got to do. You do your homework, or you do your schoolwork, and I'll do my work. And if you have any questions, ask me. I think that is beautiful.
Oh, it is.
And I feel like that's the truest form of the evolution of not just technology, but of education, because now we're actually taking the value and bringing wisdom to it.
And so much of that, I think, is the parental involvement.
Yes.
Truly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's no knock on the 8 to 2:30 classroom setting, but I think as soon as you have parental involvement and parental buy-in, how much more is that child going to succeed in any aspect?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
From an athletic standpoint, or sports, or academia, whatever, if you have more parental involvement, that child's ceiling is so much higher. So if what COVID allowed is more light bulb moments of, wow, I need to be, or want to be, or this is my opportunity to be more involved, that's a win for the kid. And a win for the kid is a win for all of us.
Yeah. If you can keep kids at the center of any conversation in education, then we are always on the right track.
Yeah.
When you get
totally agree.
your focus on the grown-ups in the room, we go sideways. When it becomes
wrong.
about, teachers unions or legislators or any of that, and you lose sight of the fact that the whole purpose of this is to educate children because they are the future. They're going to take care of us when we're old. They're, they're the ones that are going to have to cure the problems that we create.
Absolutely.
How do we make sure that they're as best equipped for that, for this world we don't know what it looks like? So it is we're all guessing,
Oh, we're in the experiment. We're in tomorrow's, we're in a living experiment right now.
Yes. Yeah.
And we will find those answers in 10 years.
Yeah.
And then they'll be, passing as we're watching probably television off of our face or whatever the heck it evolves to. Being like, if you or a loved one was a part of this program, you have a settlement. Like, that's not going away.
And right now we're like, this program is the one. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
As soon as anything's pushed from a health standpoint, give it 20 years.
Always.
Right?
Absolutely.
Well, because there's no information. We don't
Asbestos is a great insulator. And then, oh my God.
Just don't breathe it ever.
Yeah, just don't breathe it ever.
Well, it's the disconnect of, it's been the disconnect, like you said. It has to be the kids. The kids have to be the center of the conversation.
Yeah.
But if you're academia and you're needing to put X thesis out to keep your credentials, you're going to go, okay, I heard about this with kids. I talked to a couple people that are teachers. but I don't know them. This is the information that I'm get. Well, facts are cold.
Yeah.
And hard.
Yeah.
And because they're cold and hard, they don't have the empathy and compassion that wisdom bring. Yeah. And I think that's the reality is you may have all of the knowledge. That's why people say facts don't care about your feelings. You're right, but wisdom does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's there's the saying that like nobody cares about your story unless you have facts to back it up, but nobody cares about the facts unless there's the story.
Absolutely.
It's the two together.
It's got to be a balance.
You can't just anecdotally say this works for kids. You have to
met my kid?
Well,
I don't think so.
Yeah. I think the other thing is we've gotten to a place where and this is a state or a federal issue where school districts are required to adopt a curriculum that everyone has to use. Now, all three of us are in this room and we're all, successful adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're like paying our bills and all that stuff. But I guarantee
that's what I forgot.
I know. You're not the only one.
Two of the three of us. Yeah.
Maybe just Cam. I don't know.
I'm late on everything today, believe it or not.
Zero.
The power goes, I'm like, oh, that was mine.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Sorry, that was me. But the three of us absolutely do not learn the same way.
No.
So to say, here is the only textbook that teachers are allowed to use.
Yeah.
So you find a hole in that curriculum, you have to like sneakingly slide something in to fill that gap because the state has said they're required to. Now, charter schools have more flexibility and autonomy in that way, which allows for innovation in a different way. And that was the purpose of the Charter Schools Act in 1992, was that it would create competition. It actually is one of the pillars of it was to create competition within public schools that elevates everyone.
Absolutely.
Innovation
that's what competition
that
does.
elevates everyone.
Awesome.
And it has turned into a bit of a grab where it's not about elevating. It's not, oh, that school's really successful. Let's see what they're doing. It's become more of a defensive, well, that school's doing really well. They shouldn't get to exist. And so there's a challenge there between that. There's that conflict. But the goal was, if they're doing something great, let's see if we can replicate that. How can we bring that program into our school?
Appropriate doses of competition.
Yeah.
Right. Versus allowing it to just
I would say that just sounds like insecurity supporting mediocrity, right? Yeah. You're literally looking at people that are insecure in their position going, hey, like if like coffee, if coffee were to change overnight and I'm in the market, I best change with it or I will go obsolete.
Yeah.
And I see charter schools evolving with the times and doing their things. And public schools are like, it's always worked this way. And it's like, it's never actually worked.
Yeah, a lot more block format.
Actually seen how it works. I don't know where you're at on the personality types, but I always like we talk Enneagram and there's 9 different personality types with that. And then what is it?
I'm a flaming 7.
I get along well with 7s.
Right? It's shooting out of my fingers at all times. So.
Are you a 7-wing 8 or a 7-wing 6?
I would be an 8.
There you go.
Yeah. But I got a little 3 in there too.
I'm a 3-wing too. So, sorry.
No, you're good. But what I was going to say is even with the variations of all of that, we're looking at all of those different types of personality traits and all those different things. For us to assume that one thing fits everyone. Yeah. It's like going to a restaurant and going, we just have one thing for everyone.
We make the same cheeseburger for everybody, and I hope you like it.
And if you don't like it, sucks to suck. And you're like, that business is going to go out.
Yeah.
Because
or a steakhouse that only does medium well. You're like, can I have any? No, nope. You're here and you're eating. This is for you. You're like, I know I wanted steak, but it's just so burnt. That's the same amount of, hey, you're in education. Here it is. Something like this is just.
Well, I was going to say it's the absolutes always.
Yeah,
it has to be this way. No, it doesn't.
That's
anytime my kids, I always tell them, if you ever hear an adult say it has to be this way, ask them why, and if they can't give you an answer,
or it's always been this way. It's like,
that is the end of society as we live in. It has to. Well,
there's no adaptation, no growth.
No, and it may benefit you right then, right? Say you're the person that's running the school system the way it is and you're making money off of it. Well, eventually you're going to retire. And guess what? When they change everything that you stood for, because what you stood for wasn't necessarily the actual vision of the kids and helping keep the kids safe and wanting to make sure the kids had the best education, your whole thing that you stood for dies with you.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the truest form of justice, right? It's like it's kind of this weird thing. And I've talked to a lot of people about this, like trying to de-escalate things because people are like, well, I need to be right. I've been to those meetings. Yeah. Oh, I need to be. It's like, no, you don't. Stop. Being right doesn't fix anything, because if you're right, you're still wrong because you're doing it in the wrong way, right? Let your point, if it's such a good point and it's such a good idea, it will outlast you. Yeah. So put it out there, sow the seeds, and when the tree grows and the person says, no tree will grow there, every day they walk by that tree, they're going to go, oh my gosh, that tree totally worked. And everything that they thought is going to go against that. And that's the truest form of justice. You don't have to hurt anybody. They're going to live with their own ego being hurt every day going, man. And maybe it'll challenge them to go, I should fix these things.
As soon as they walk under the shade of the tree.
Exactly. I think that's how we move forward and progress.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm so excited to hear you talk about these things, because I constantly get parents that are like, it's just injustice and they don't understand. It's like, no, we're changing. Things are moving.
Yeah.
You can't have this absolute thing. Create something better and let it exist. And as it grows and becomes the new thing, if it's that good of an
100.
idea, then it'll outlive you. And every person will look at that and go, wow, I didn't see it that way. And they're going to have to swallow their pride and go, man, maybe I missed something. And that's how we change.
Yeah.
Joe, how does creative thinkers play into a lot of what we're discussing?
Well, and I'll be dialoguing with her more about that. So creative thinkers would be considered a vendor.
Yeah.
So a vendor specifically represents the students get X budget for X things that happen. And those representations, like if you're in school, your kid gets a budget. That budget's set by the state. At least tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm literally sitting with the person. Yeah. And then that budget gets set, and then the school gets paid that budget for the kid being there. And it used to be based off of attendance.
It still is.
It still is?
Yeah.
I know
COVID paused
it. They paused it, so they're back on that. So then the more your kid shows. So if you're saying my kid's going to school and he's not showing up, the school is going to let you know because they're not getting the money from the state.
Got it.
So then at that point, the school then has the money to dictate the terms on how things operate and how they go through. And then they balance it for low income to high income. And then they balance things out if there's field trips and stuff to make sure stuff's taken care of. Charter schools, they go, here's our base operating cost. Here is for books and for pencils and for whatever your kid needs. Here's X budget. Instead of it going into a building, since your kid is at home for a period of time, that counts. So we're going to we'll have a account set for you that is X dollars for you to pick X vendors or X gear so that it can be allocated to the proper places.
Yep. And so within charter schools, there are site-based charter schools, such as
100%.
like, Paragon, Twin Rivers.
Yeah.
We have a number of them. Yes Charter up in the hills. Like there's a lot of site-based charter schools here that are a wonderful opportunity.
Absolutely.
The ones that Joe just described, we are flexible learning charter schools, personalized learning. And the way that we do it, as he mentioned, is that we set a budget for an instructional fund allotment that's monitored by our credentialed teacher, but families get to be a part of that conversation. So rather than the school saying, like I mentioned, we have this adopted curriculum and everyone in third grade is going to use it. We say, let's look at your learning style. Let's look.
Absolutely.
We use Myers-Briggs within the KidsMet platform. And then we also use iReady, which is a diagnostic tool. And we start to look at, okay, where is your child? And we've created a proprietary software called the Curriculum Wizard.
That's awesome.
Which Stacy's on that team.
Oh, there you go.
And it'll take your KidsMet information, your iReady data, and then it helps you to filter out curriculum choices. The great thing about it is it makes recommendations. We don't require anyone to use those recommendations. So if you feel very passionately about a certain curriculum,
this is what I want,
then we do it. The one thing we do try to explain to parents is that a child's learning style is not always in line with the parent's learning style. So parents a lot of times have these beautiful ideas about what homeschooling is going to look like, and life is learning and we're going to do this. And then they have a child who loves workbooks and they're like, it's killing me.
Get her to class.
But it's about the kid. The kid, that's how she learns best. Then let's give her the best ones we can.
Well, that's the difference between I know what's best for you and then observing them and learning what's best for them.
Yes. It is that, and being okay with pivoting.
Oh,
you know, I've had parents that said, "Oh, I had this great curriculum last year, and this year the curriculum, they're crying." I'm like, "Then why are we still using that?" They're like, "We're allowed to change." Like, yes. She's like, "So, like, should we finish this chapter? Do we need to?" No.
Just stop now.
Scrap it.
If something's making you cry and you're dreading teaching it every day, let's walk away and try something different. You don't have to stick with it. So
Time to change it up.
You know, you're making just hearing this, because I've literally talked with parents all the time, and I hear that frustration. I just hate this curriculum, and I'm always just, why are you using it? They're like, well, we have to, and I'm like, huh? And so hearing you go, what are you doing? And I'm like, thank God my thoughts are validated, because there's so much of me like, if you hate it, don't do it.
Yeah. Especially if your kid's just like, so.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got enough battles in your day with your kids.
Oh my gosh.
You don't want school to be another one if you can avoid it. Now, there's times where it's like, no, you do need to do your math. Like, you do need to do this. But there's also a lot of ways that we can accomplish this.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I was sitting with my son. We were, report cards came out, and I was like, C's and D's. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And because I'm seeing him every day. First thing, hey, you got any homework? Yep. Homework and chores. As soon as we get home.
Sure.
Those are the rules. Hey, homework and chores. When you're done with those, if you get done on a specific time, you can play some video games. If not, hey, you wasted it because homework and chores. So he comes home and we see his report card for C's and D's, and we sat with the teacher, and she's like, yeah, he's super smart. He's really bright. He knows these things.
Application.
But it's just, he gets overwhelmed. And I was like, oh, okay. And so she goes, we'll work on some things. And so she actually cut some of the homework load down. She goes, he just needs to learn the basics here.
Yeah.
And he's getting it. Instead of there being 50 questions of the same thing, let's give him 25.
Yep.
And just, as long as he's getting the basics, we're good.
Yeah.
And it was so awesome having that flexibility. And then she goes, yeah, and he just turns homework in late. I said, oh, he's turning homework in late? He looks at me and goes, yeah, I've been turning homework in late. Why didn't you tell me? I was like, there's your problem right there. There's your grade. He goes, really? I said, yeah, just turn your homework in on time. So then the question in the card changed from, hey, when you get home, make sure you do this. Hey, did you turn your homework in today?
Yeah.
Simple question that got added. His report card came in 2 days ago, and he's got B's and A's.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's like, wow. And he feels so much better.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like,
accomplished.
but it was such a little fix.
Yep.
It's like, why didn't you turn it in? Well, when they're walking around, I'm opening up my binder and I don't know where I put my paperwork.
Yep.
I went, oh, let's get you a binder that's got colors for the days of the week.
Absolutely.
And he's like, okay.
Executive functioning skills, like, it's real.
Yes.
And I have a 10-year-old that struggles immensely with, you have to give him one thing to do. And my challenge is, my brain is like 10 miles down the road. And so I see that he's doing that thing and I'm like, okay, buddy. And when you're done with that, make sure you brush your teeth and then also comb your hair and put on deodorant. And then I'll look at him, 10 minutes later and I'm like,
did you
don't have your hair brushed or, and he's like, I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you get frustrated, but I thought, okay, I have got to get better at.
Do you ever say under your breath, "You're such a man"?
Just blank.
Yeah, just blanketly.
I love the blank stare I get from mine. It's just like, you're like, your mouth is open, you're staring at me. Yeah. Did you forget something?
Yeah. That happens when I look at Hannah often. And I'm just like, she's like, "Did you hear me?" I'm like, well, that's a weird way to start a conversation.
Yeah. Now, I will say, so my son often would say like, well, I didn't hear you. I didn't know you were talking to me, whatever.
Yeah.
So one day he said, like, I'm having trouble hearing people or something. And I thought, that's odd. So we went to an ENT and sure enough, his eardrums weren't working.
Oh my gosh.
And
Poor kid.
The audiologist was like, oh, Mom, you're in the right place. Like saying things very cheerfully. And I was like, we are?
Really?
And then I looked at him and I thought, oh my gosh, how long have I been yelling at you?
Yeah.
And you really couldn't hear me from the other room.
Did my yelling hurt your eardrums? Am I to blame?
And then in that moment of seriousness, he says, "Huh?"
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Could you speak up?
Yeah. Yeah. And the first day when they put the tubes in, I was like, how you doing, buddy? He's like, it's really loud.
Yeah. Mom,
Oh my
chill. I'm right here. You're
no
like,
wonder, like, you always had the TV blasting. And
Yeah.
and I thought, oh,
Now a lot of things make more sense.
Yeah, I think it's easy for us to kind of look past it. And then, like you were saying, parents like to put themselves in their shoes, but we can't put ourselves in their shoes.
Yeah.
We can look at their shoes and hope that, oh, there's a hole in the shoes. We should patch them.
Yeah.
Hey, your feet are getting bigger. We need to get you new shoes.
Yeah.
Instead of going, you have to wear what I wore and do what I
Yeah.
did.
This is what worked
Look,
for me.
Maybe someone's going to get mad at me. Look, you probably didn't turn out that great. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
That's probably the truth. Most of the stuff that I've experienced in life is it wasn't as good as you remember it.
Sure.
Nostalgia is only there for a minute, and things need to adapt and change, and you can't
Yeah.
let it happen through fear. And so guess what? You probably are screwed up just as much as everybody else. Welcome to the human race.
Yeah.
And to make sure your kid doesn't get screwed up more than you.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
an equal
Let's
playing
adapt.
field.
Yeah, it's not just about giving them the life we had. We do want them to have a better life.
100%.
And also, there's that saying that, children are so resilient. They are until they become dysfunctional
Yeah,
adults.
exactly.
Like, yes, they appear to be okay through some really tough stuff.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean they're always
No.
okay from that. Like,
No.
you dig things up in adulthood and you're like, oh my gosh, that
Oh,
was
I never
so hard.
actually healed from that.
Yeah.
But when mom and dad was like, oh, they'll be fine. It's good for them. You're like,
Yeah.
oh no, they're
Rub
going to be
it.
in therapy.
Yeah,
all
rub
the
some
time.
dirt on it.
Well,
It'll be okay.
There is that mountain. Jordan Peterson says an amazing phrase about parenting. It's specifically with mothers. He says, and I'm probably going to butcher it. I'm going to do my best. He goes, the best type and shadow for a mother is actually Mary. You raise a child the best that you can possibly do it, and then you have to let them go into the world so they can be crucified by the
Yeah.
world, so they
Yeah.
can be resurrected into the person they need
Yeah.
to be. So there's that amount. There's so much you can do. You can try and give the best moral compass, consciousness. You can try and do the best you can in the situations,
Yeah.
but you will fail.
Yeah,
And
you have to.
and you have to, because the world is what's going to form them. And if they can understand the tone of you, they can understand your heart. If they can understand how you took care of situations, that is 10 times more important. So diligence to me is way more important than anything else. It's like, yeah, you had a bad day yesterday. Cool. We all have bad days. What are you going to do tomorrow? Because if your kid only sees bad days, they'll think that's normal. Right?
Yeah.
If they only see you frustrated all the time and always see you begrudging work, they're not going to want to work.
Mm-hmm.
You're showing them that.
Yeah.
Right? So the best thing you can do is be like,
Little
hey,
sponges.
it's like take every day as the day comes and look at every situation the best way and go, hey, how can we resolve this? And try and look for the best way to resolve situations. Because when your kids see that,
Yeah.
the situation becomes clearer in their mind to go, hey, this is important.
Yeah.
We can resolve the situation. I refuse to let go of people if there's a miscommunication. I'll be like,
Yeah.
yo, hey, let's clarify this. We need to get this figured out. I want to know. And even if I let it breathe, I go, hey, just making sure we're good. We need to communicate. How can we fix this? Because the last thing that needs to happen is a friendship get thrown away because of miscommunication. And if kids only see that, and they only see their parents on their cell phone, oh my gosh, did you hear about so-and-so? I don't listen to politics around my kids. I won't do any of that. I'm like, no, cool.
I hear politics from my kids. Like, I will say, I think
Hear about what's going on the border? You're 6.
You're
How
like,
the
oh
heck?
my gosh.
yeah. Well,
Can you believe it?
It is interesting to me because I would imagine we're all around the same age that as a kid, you might have known the president's name, but you didn't know anything about it. And
nothing
not
else.
to say the kids know anything, but man, kids wearing presidential shirts,
I know.
kids having debates at school about it.
It's wild.
It is very interesting where I'm like, this is grown up stuff. Like, yes, it somehow trickles down to you, but like,
No, keep the
go ride your
innocence.
bike.
Yeah.
Keep the innocence of youth.
And that's part of the evolution of technology, right? Knowledge, like knowledge and wisdom. These kids want to go, I'm wise. It's like you spent 8 hours, and you could have spent 8 hours listening to lectures from astrophysicists and no. But they also have the wisdom from experiments and time and years and polish that you don't have.
Yep.
Go out there and fail.
Yeah.
Please do us all a favor. Go out there and fail, because then that vanity you have is going to decrease.
Yeah.
And go, man, maybe I don't know as much as I know.
And you're going to be more of a societal contributor.
And you'll actually do something.
If your pride's hurt a little bit.
And so that's when I see that. And you're right. I'm seeing it with kids all the time. And often I always will pivot and go, so what do you think really is going on with that? Well, I just think, well, maybe it's not as malicious as you think. Maybe this person is trying to do the best they can with this, and this person doesn't think that's good enough, and they think they can do better. But that doesn't mean that this person isn't giving it their best. That just means this person is just not communicating it clearly, or they don't understand these things because they don't have the wisdom to go through it. You know, like we had the solar eclipse that happened, and I brought that up talking with some kids. I said, so what did you hear was going to happen? They're like, the werewolves were going to come out. Oh, I heard it was the end of the world. And we just had an open conversation. I said, and guess what? It's probably just a solar eclipse, huh? They're like, yeah. I was like, this is us. We can put in our own malicious intent into anything and think that something crazy is going to happen because we're creative minds. But it's much easier to just go, no, it's just it's just a solar eclipse, and move on. And the kids, we just laughed and had fun because it was one of those like, what else are we going to do?
Yeah, I think we easily get spun up, and between like the spin up and the cancel culture.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody's allowed to have a different opinion. And it's hard to hear a different opinion. And it's hard when you know that person doesn't have all the information.
Sure.
It's painful. But to just like, we can't be friends anymore, you know, that's not an effective way to communicate. That's not how you exist in the world. Like, you're going to interact with people different from you.
Yeah. And you should, and it's good for you.
Please do.
Please do.
I will say, I think that is one of the beautiful things about being educated at home and in your community is you're not bound by your age.
It's true.
So, you know, in a traditional site-based school, you all 7-year-olds are, you know, all in second grade together. And it doesn't matter if you're academically advanced or socially struggling, you're all in it together because you're 7 and your birthday was this year.
Yeah.
And what I have found is a lot of our students, they can communicate everyone says, oh, how do homeschool kids get socialized? You know, and I think, well, how do kids in a school where they're told to be quiet all day get socialized?
Absolutely.
That's really, you know, you might be around people, but you're not like through osmosis communicating with them.
Yeah.
But our kids, you know, they're in these multi-age experiences. They're out interacting with other adults throughout the day. Yep. They're interacting with business owners. They're going to park days with children that might be older or younger than them. Yeah. And that's the reality.
A more appropriate socialization.
Well,
than everybody all uniform.
Because you're never really with anybody that's all just the same age.
No, like
you're always with somebody that's a little younger, somebody that's a little older.
That's right. It's more real life.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
One of my favorite mom friends, I laugh because I met her when I first moved to Yuba City about 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've just always known her, and I forget there's a huge age difference. And one day she was joking about her husband teasing her about how young she is or whatever. And I said, well, like, you're turning 30 this year, aren't you? And she's like, Cindy, I'm 23. And I'm like, and I'm 42. Oh my God. I said, but I've known you for so long.
Child, get out of here.
But we both have a 6-year-old, you know, and we're good friends. And
that's amazing.
And I said, wait a second. She goes, Cindy, I started coming to your house when I was 11. And I was like, huh? But she's somebody that I absolutely can relate to, and I shouldn't be able to, you know, I could be her mom, but we can hang out and play with the kids and talk about life.
That's amazing.
And so that's the reality. You're going to interact with people of all ages. And I, to the community piece, like, you know, there's that, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
Our motto is like, yes, but I want to choose that village. You know, it's not just
awesome.
that you're throwing them out into whatever village you stop by, but it's okay. If there are going to be these influences on my child, I want to have some control over that, because the kids will come home and say things and I'm like, oh God, like what? Like,
where did you,
why are you hearing that? You're, you know, like my son in preschool, he was like, he got mad and he's like, Mom, I'm not your friend anymore. And I thought, oh, like you're 2 and somebody said that? Like, that's not something you innately know.
No,
so
exactly.
You heard that.
Those hurt.
That was the first time where I thought, oh, like I sent you out in the world and somebody said something really awful. And now you're saying it to me because you're mad that you have to go to bed or whatever. But yeah, having control over who you allow into your child's life. And
super.
I love that. I love the aspect of choose your village.
Yes.
Right.
Choose it
absolutely
wisely.
Is. How does somebody, to land the plane, how does somebody get a hold of you from an access standpoint. Somebody's listening to this and they're like, wow, I need to begin to venture down the road of changing it up for my child, either getting them from traditional schooling to charter or vice versa, or interdistrict or out of district transfer, whatever. At what capacity can they reach out to you directly? What is the channel and what is the approach for that person?
Yeah. So, I'm available on Facebook and social media.
Sure.
Our school that is located here in the Yuba Sutter community is South Sutter Charter School. So you can always go to southsuttercs.org and find the school website to learn more about our school. If you just have general questions, though, I'm happy to take them. People can find me online and send me a message.
Sure. Is there an email or anything that?
So my email is the letter C, and my last name is Rachel, Rachel, at IEMINC.org.
IEMINC.org.
Yes.
Just want to repeat because that's a lot of letters.
It's a lot of letters.
We'll go back and put it in the bottom.
We'll add it in. So, but yeah, they can reach out. I'm happy to have conversations. I've had, I sit on the school attendance review board for Sutter County. And so I meet a lot of different school people there, and they'll be like, hey, I think we might have a student that would be more successful in your setting. And so we have that conversation, or people will say, oh, I have this friend that's trying to figure this out and she can't do it on her own. And I'm happy to help with those things because if you're in education, like we were talking about with Hannah being a teacher, if I hadn't been in this role, or if I hadn't moved to our school 15 years ago, I always just thought, like parents would say in a meeting, oh, fine, we're just going to homeschool them. And I would be like, well, we'll see you back here in a year when it doesn't work. Because as a site-based public school teacher, you only see the students that are doing alternative ed that it doesn't work for.
Sure.
You know, they tried it, they pulled out angrily, and then they're back a year later, they haven't made progress. And now you're stuck trying to fix that.
Yeah.
What I realized when I moved into our school is there's this whole other world of students that have no need and truly no business being in that site-based school.
Yeah.
The second grader that I had, whose father was a professor at UC Davis, and she tutored his college students.
Wow.
How on earth is she going to sit in a second grade classroom? She would literally drown in that classroom.
Absolutely.
You know, she would struggle in ways we couldn't even imagine.
Sure.
And those kids you're never going to see as a public school site-based teacher. You're never going to even know they exist.
Yeah.
You just see the kid that they don't do anything. They come back the next year and now you're trying to deal with it. So how do we, just make it to where everyone knows there's choices and that it's not about the adults. It's about the kids. What is best for the kids? How do we make sure that they have the best opportunity no matter where they live?
Absolutely.
And how do we empower parents to stay involved, whatever that means? If that means you are commuting and you need to just have an email with your teacher every day to know what's going on, to know that you can ask for that. The one thing I did mention before we went on was there's also a bill called the Parent Employment Bill that, and it's law now. So it was the Allen bill, but the idea was that students can enroll as a student of residence for a district where their parents work. So as long as their parents physically go to work in a location, they count that as residency for a child to attend school there. So we have a lot of families that commute.
Yeah.
And that's challenging because if you're in Sacramento and your child gets sick in Yuba City, you got to haul butt to get back up here or find family or friends or whatever.
Absolutely.
But for some families, they'll say, man, there's this great school right down the street from my office.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to go through interdistrict transfer and try to fight for a spot. You're considered a resident based on your parents' employment.
That's awesome.
So that allows
And that's something that's being voted on, or that is something
it's
that
already
is now
in law.
It's
That
through.
is now law. And that's called the what?
The Allen bill. He was a senator, Assemblyman Allen, Allen, but it's the parental employment law now.
And then what is it that you're doing? You're proving to the school the location of the employer?
Yeah, so I would imagine the easiest way is when you're filling out your paperwork and you are submitting proof of residency, which you do from your schools. you're just including a pay stub or something like that. They'll know what you would need.
For validation purposes.
Yeah. You have to authenticate that they do live, or they are.
Prove you're not a robot.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Click here or.
I saw a green light in all 6 of those images.
Yeah. I always panic on those.
Yeah.
I'm like.
I instantly start sweating. I'm like, that stop sign touched all 6 of the boxes.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't have clicked on all 6. I'm like, got me.
Yeah. Or is that a stoplight? Or is that a bicycle wheel? It's kind of in that. Yeah. I do the same thing. But yeah, you have.
Joe's like, I've never failed on one of those. We're like, sorry.
No, I literally will spend time. I've gone through 5 of the same one. I'm like, I hit it all. And it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Then you put in your password and it's like, wrong password. You're like,
oh.
Yeah, I have passwords.
Then you put in the password to reset it and it goes.
You already had that one.
Please use not the same password. Like,
oh my God.
Oh, yeah. It's bad.
Totally.
We could talk about passwords all day.
So yes, that's an amazing bill.
That's an incredible bill.
Yeah, I think it's just awesome. Again, it's
huge.
If you're a parent and you want your kids nearby, but you also have to work somewhere else.
Yeah, it's important.
Now you're not fighting for a space in that school in the same way.
Totally makes sense.
And then your kid's close by, and God forbid something happened, but you need to get to them quickly for whatever reason. Sure. Now you're not scrambling in the same way. Like the worst thing is, if I go to Sacramento for a meeting and the school calls and I'm like, I can be there in an hour. Like, can he lay on the cot in the nurse's office for an hour? Is that okay? Or do I need to find someone else?
Sure.
Or am I rushing to meet you at a hospital or
wherever? Yeah, what are we doing?
Just having some choice there and control over that.
Oh, for sure. That's amazing.
Thank you for taking the time this morning.
Yes, appreciate it.
It was awesome. That was an incredible interview. From a academia standpoint, looking at it now as a father, it is more important than I ever thought it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now that Beckham is he turns 5 next month, all of it is starting to like hit and come full circle. I'm like, wow. The amount of when you have parental buy-in, the student wins, the kids win. So I think to look at the full encompassing nutshell this podcast, it's like if you are a parent, the more buy-in you have, the better.
Yep.
More buy-in you have, the better for your kids' education and the higher their ceiling is. So thank you.
They need to know you care, and that
absolutely
if they hear like, oh, I got to go to parent conference again, or like that's you're learning about them.
Yeah. You are your child's teacher before anyone else.
Oh, and just so you know, compulsory education in California is not required by law until you're 6 years old. So if you decided you didn't want Beckham to go to school next year, he doesn't have to.
There you go.
Nobody's going to come knock at your door.
Back with me another year. I know. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for checking out the Cam and Joe Show.
If you guys are liking our content so far, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can also listen to us on Spotify.